Good morning.
So get Brexit done, your slogan, which does seem to be cutting through, but handy for the side of a bus. But actually, it's only the divorce, isn't it, for the end of January? You've got an awful lot more to do after that.
Well, Martha, what we're setting out today, and that obviously includes getting Brexit done, is the choice facing the electorate in 7 days' time. It's a crucial choice, absolutely critical for the future of our country. A Conservative majority government that will end the paralysis that we've all seen, get Brexit done, and I will answer your question. I'll come back precisely
Well, if you
to
could,
that.
rather than the pre-prepared soundbite, that would be great.
Well, it is important to set out this choice, because in 7 days' time, we're all going to have to do it, you and me included. We're going to have to decide, do we want that Conservative majority, take the country forward, or do we want a hung parliament that will install Corbyn in Downing Street with Nicola Sturgeon by his side, all the chaos that will ensue?
Okay, you did say you'd address my question.
And one of the key things that we will get done in the first 100 days is take our deal that has been agreed, a good deal, through Parliament, and it will be done by the end of January.
But
and
that's
we would
only the
have
divorce,
got Brexit
isn't
done.
it? Well,
it is the exit arrangements that have been set out and have been agreed by the EU and the UK. It's a good deal, and once it goes through, we will have left the EU, and we would have entered what's called the transition period. During that period, by the end of 2020, we will have agreed and finalised the trade deal, a very ambitious, deep, comprehensive free trade agreement, and we will get that done also by the end of 2020.
But that's a very tight timetable, isn't it? So let's go through that. You hope to get your withdrawal agreement all done and dusted by the end of January, and that leaves you just to the end of June to get this very ambitious trade deal, because after that you have to allow time before the end of the year for the EU countries to ratify it.
Well, in the time that we've been negotiating over the last 100 days or so, it wasn't just the exit agreement, which is obviously critical, and that's why we can leave by the end of January. We just need that Conservative majority. We are also negotiated and worked and agreed the outline of the ambitious free trade agreement.
But that's very broad brush, as you know, and the devil is in the detail, isn't it, when it comes to trade agreements?
Of course there's going to be some detail to discuss. Of course there is. But the important thing that's taken us forward is that we know exactly what we want, and the EU has accepted that. It works for them. It works for us. It will mean that we still have a close economic relationship.
So
but
know
it gives
exactly
us
what
back
you want.
control of our borders, our law, our money, and it's an arrangement that in principle, because there's an agreement, there's not a single doubt in my mind that it can be agreed within months, and we can get it through Parliament by 2020.
So what tariffs do you want for the car industry?
It's because it's a deep, comprehensive free trade agreement. It's zero tariffs, zero quotas, not just for the car industry. An agreement on services, having equivalence on financial services. We've set all this out. It's actually
what makes you think that the EU is going to agree to that in such a short time frame?
Because there's already an agreement. There's already an agreement in principle. It's already there. It's done there. It's not just my words. Take the new incoming commissioner for trade has said himself that he believes that this trade can be done in 2020. The only thing that's going to stop this is a Labour government with a further hung parliament and all the paralysis that will bring again. We've got to end that. We've not just got to get Brexit done. We've got to focus on so much more. The people's priorities, our NHS, our schools, our hospitals.
Getting
made
police
this point
on the streets, of the
all of that.
But which country has managed to get a full trade deal with the EU in a matter of months?
Which country has left the EU before being fully aligned at the moment it leaves, and in a situation like ours? No country. So to
but
compare,
you don't want to stay fully aligned, do you? That's the very
fully
point.
Aligned at the point of departure.
Yes, but
if you are aligned,
that's the destination. That's the point at which we're starting at. But you want to change it, don't you? That's the whole point of us leaving the EU, is so that we don't have the same alignment.
That's right. But being fully aligned at the point of departure means that our negotiating situation for both us and the EU is very different from any trade agreement the EU has ever agreed in the past.
David Gauke, one of your former cabinet colleagues, he says the complexity and therefore the time needed to negotiate a trade deal doesn't depend on the starting point of the relationship, but the destination. Divergence means complexity, which means a deal will take time.
Look, I like David Gauke, but he also said when Boris Johnson became Prime Minister that there is no way that the deal that Theresa May had agreed would be reopened. He said there was no way the backstop would be removed. He said there's no way you'd get any progress in Parliament.
There was a way, which was by going back to the deal that she was on offer originally, which was having a border down the Irish Sea, which she rejected.
Well, we've got a better deal, and that's the deal that the British people can decide on in 7 days' time. Do they want to get Brexit done, take the country forward, end that paralysis,
with a border down the Irish Sea,
that hung Parliament with Jeremy Corbyn and Nicola Sturgeon with 2 chaotic referendums next year, 2, not 1, and a economy that will crash because of Labour's economic policies that will absolutely be taking this country backwards.
Given the tightness of the timetable, you have to admit that the prospect of us leaving at the end of the transition period, at the end of next December, still leaves open the possibility of no deal, doesn't it?
Look, I am confident that we will get the deal done for the reasons that I've set out. And,
yes,
and
these still leave the possibility, doesn't it, of no deal?
I think that is extremely remote, that situation. And there's no...
Dominic
because
Raab, Foreign Secretary, told us that no deal's still on the table.
It's the situation as we find it now is that we have an agreement already in principle on that future trade agreement. The Treasury and other departments have been very involved in that. And because we have agreed on both sides what that future looks like, and it's great, it's a great future.
I hear your optimism. But voters want to know. A lot of people are going to be making their minds up on this very issue. And they want to know that is that possibility still there? And you have to admit that it is. That we could be at the end of next December, we could be still leaving the EU without a full trade deal.
The real possibility of no deal is if we get a hung Parliament and Corbyn in number 10, because he has no plan. He has no plan for this.
You're not answering this rather important question, are you?
That is the risk of not getting this done by the end of January, is if you have a Corbyn government and this nightmare continues.
It's an important question for British businesses. The CBI, the employers' organisation, says a no-deal Brexit, they said this recently, a no-deal Brexit would put the brakes on UK growth and realise businesses' worst fears. And that remains a possibility, doesn't it, under a Conservative government?
Nobody wants a no-deal Brexit. And every
but
business...
you're not ruling it out, and people will notice that.
Every business that I speak to, their fears are the uncertainty around Brexit. They want that to end. They want the deal to go through. They want that uncertainty to go, no matter what their views on the referendum on day one.
You're leaving the uncertainty because the possibility of no deal will be there.
Not at all. Not at all. We are getting on with Brexit. We are delivering our exit from the EU. We've agreed a fantastic new trade deal with the EU. But I tell you something else, that businesses are also absolutely petrified of a Jeremy Corbyn government.
Right. We've had the political point scoring. I understand it's an election campaign.
The most punitive corporate tax regime in history.
People are interested in what you're going to do, and you've laid out your plans for 100 days, and I can understand the campaigning point of that. It's to make it appear that you're shiny fresh and so on. But actually, the Conservatives have been in power for nearly 10 years, so you've had plenty of time to address issues like social care, education funding, or indeed tax cuts in that period of time long before now.
And look what we've achieved. We've got the highest level of employment in our country ever. We've got the lowest unemployment rate in 44 years. We've got wages rising faster than inflation.
We've
got the house building at its highest level in 30 years. You know how important that is to people's lives and to the NHS. You've had a chance. A nettle you could have grasped long before now, and all you're offering is cross-party talks. That could have happened at any point in the last decade. Well, you raise an important issue of another very critical public service, which is looking after our elderly with dignity and compassion. And whether it's social care, whether it's the NHS, whether it's schools, all of this requires funding, and that's why I've focused on the strength of the economy since we came back into office. Remember, the last Labour government left us with an economic crisis, as every Labour government has done in history. They gave us the deepest recession in 100 years.
As you know, Labour would say it's a global financial crisis.
Well, they would
let's
say
not
that
go over
because
past
it suits
history,
them, but it's wrong.
But I want you to address what's going on in your party, and particularly the issue of Islamophobia. Do you acknowledge that this is an important issue for your party? The Guardian last week talked about 25 sitting and former Conservative councillors being exposed for posting Islamophobic and racist material on social media.
It's a very important issue. Of course, I acknowledge that. And whenever we have found any kind of prejudice, whether it's anti-Muslim hatred or any other type of prejudice, I'm proud that we've always taken action immediately as soon as that is presented to the party
That's not
centrally.
the view of Saeed Abbasi, the former Conservative cabinet minister, who thinks that the party has been slow to act on this.
Look, I've got time for Saeed Abbasi. I will always listen to what her and others have to say, but she wouldn't be knowledgeable of all the actions that we have taken. It's right that when someone is accused that we look at the evidence, but we have a zero tolerance policy against any type of prejudice or hatred. It is something I came into politics to fight. It's one of the things.
But have you been fighting hard enough within the Conservatives? Because Saeed Abbasi talked to the World at One last week, and she says she understands your position. She said it would be a career-ending moment for you to criticise the party for Islamophobia, but she hopes that one day you will be braver and bolder.
Well, I have to say, with respect to that's nonsense. This is why come into politics if you're not going to make positive change. And this is one of the things that has motivated me more than anything. And it's not just about me. It's something that the Prime Minister would never, ever tolerate. And remember, this is the Prime Minister that has appointed the most diverse cabinet that this country has ever seen. And that's because he loves and celebrates the whole diversity of our great United Kingdom.
Would you have written an article, as Boris Johnson did, about Muslim women wearing the veil looking like letterboxes?
I don't write articles. So, but Boris Johnson was a journalist, and he's written lots of articles, as he said himself. People can pick one word out or another, but what matters is the kind of Prime Minister he's going to be.
That.
And when it comes to our nation and the great diversity of it, it's hard to find anyone who celebrates it more than Boris Johnson does.
Sajid Javid. Sorry.
Hey, see, look.
Okay. Chancellor of the Exchequer.
Thank you
Sajid
very much.
Javid. Thank you for talking to us.
Take care. Bye.